Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the Bank of England has kept interest rates on hold at 0.5% and cut its growth forecast. It's quite a contrast to the signals from the bank just a few months ago. Well, earlier, our economics correspondent Helia Ibrahimi asked Mark Carney, the bank's governor, what had gone wrong.
It was a difficult first quarter. A lot of that, we think, was due to a series of adverse weather. We all lived through it, and that knocked construction down. It made it harder to get in the shops, harder to spend, harder to build houses. And so when we look at it as a whole, we think most of it is short-term erratic.
But do you accept you're playing with fire when you start telling consumers or messaging consumers that the interest rates are going to go up and then they don't?
Oh, no. Helia, I think it's the exact opposite. I think playing with fire is keeping from people across the country the possibility or the likelihood that interest rates are going to go up a bit. I think our job is to come straight with the British people and say, listen, we're in a position where unemployment is lower than it's been for 43 years, where wages are starting to pick up, where there's very little spare capacity in the economy. And in order to keep this on a sustainable track, it's more likely than not that interest rates are going to go up over the course of the next few years.
They haven't gone up. You got it wrong.
No, I haven't got it wrong because we haven't been through the period of time. So it's more likely than not that they're going to go up. Plan accordingly.
Mark Carney. But how relevant are interest rates to places like Ashington in Northumberland? Once a thriving mining town today, its population often struggles to find decent work and stay connected with the wider region and the country as a whole. Helia has been to talk to some of them.
The trains don't stop in Ashington. Passengers just watch freight passing through. Their town station has been closed since 1964. Like so many places around Britain, people in Ashington feel like the economy has left them behind.
This was Ashington's reason to exist. Giant pit wheels like this were spread across the entire area. Now just these two survive. Ashington was a coal town through and through, and the steam age brought with it tens of thousands of jobs. Jobs that have never really been replaced.
Tuesday night at Ashington's YMCA. The gamers are battling mythical demons and dragons.
You hear it very loud.
It's harder to pin down the enemy in the real world, especially for this generation.
Because we were brought up with our grandparents complaining, obviously because they weren't in the pit anymore, so they were complaining about not being in the pit. And then our parents complaining because they were complaining. Now we've just started complaining about it.
Like, Ashington was mint.
Yeah, Ashington was
and then the mine shut down and everything went to hell. And I was like, okay.
We're in such a state of disrepair that it's literally just sticking duct tape over the holes instead of actually filling them. I mean, just look at the potholes.
Yeah. The pothole situation.
The pothole situation. I've turned into a 50-year-old man.
It's a tough inheritance for this group of young men.
I'm always struggling to find something, like all the time. So you can't go for the job unless you have the experience, but you can't get the experience unless someone lets you do it.
It's definitely a town call in the past, because like we've been saying, how everybody came here for the jobs, everybody's going away. Everybody from here is going to far away, Newcastle, Blythe, wherever they can get it really, because there's just nothing going on here. And then obviously you've got travel, which is terrible. So if you don't have a car, your options are extremely limited. So I'm stuck in this general area.
Would you think about moving?
It's a possibility, but I've got no money to move, so I'm literally stuck.
Would you move?
I don't have the money to move. I live with my mother, and she can't afford to not live without us.
If you could afford to leave, would you go? Would you leave
I'd be gone behind? Now. If I could afford to live somewhere else, I would leave now.
Even when there's work, Ashington's weekly wages are 12% less than Newcastle, just down the road, and a third lower than London. Here, there's a higher number of long-term sick, higher number of people retired, and a higher proportion of economic inactivity. It's Britain's two-speed economy, within miles of each other and yet worlds apart. The dislocation felt in Ashington shows little evidence of the government's £400 million Northern Powerhouse investment.
Ashington is going under regeneration, but we don't see it happening. It's taking its time. We're a mining town, and I think that's where we're stuck. If you look up Ashington, there's a lovely painting of a miner with a child on his shoulders, but it's also showing more of our history instead of what we could be. It's showing what we were.
Kaz Thompson would like a different kind of life. She likes a community, but is tired of working in casual jobs that don't make the most of her training.
I find it hard to plan for my children because I can't get a step in the right direction. A lot of people won't leave the area because of the kind of community we've got, but I think that also limits what we can do.
Akzo Nobel spent £100 million in Ashington building the world's most advanced paint factory. But modern manufacturing, driven by robotics, is not very labour-intensive, and the company employs just 150 people, and not all of them from Ashington.
Well, what about the £100 million invested by companies like Akzo Nobel? They have the most high-tech paint company in the world, right in Ashington. Does that not make a difference?
No, I didn't even notice it.
No?
I knew it was there, but that was it.
I didn't even know it was there.
In the middle of town is something no one can escape, a station at the heart of the high street that has been closed to passengers for a generation.
The real problem is there has been no new industry, no replacement work of any sort, and that leads to this emotional feeling of isolation, rejection, being forgotten. But it's not just an emotional feeling. Reopening this railway line will bring some economic prosperity back into the town.
280 miles down the track, the Bank of England has been agonising over the tiniest change in interest rates. But in the northeast, where Ashington is, it's hard to see things shifting just by tweaking monetary policy. These communities need rail, jobs, and a route back into the modern economy.
Helia Brahimi reporting from Ashington.